Okay, so this video is going to demo kind of a shortcut to putting an exterior view out your window. So for a lot of us now in class, we have our views set up. So we have scenes up here with our various views. I will do a video to show how to do that to review it. But in this video, we're just going to show you basically the shortcut to put in an exterior view out those windows. So if you're here, you're showing your client this image, you want to make this look as realistic as possible. So you would have a view out this window instead of into this like default kind of gray zone of the SketchUp. When we get into Enscape, you're going to have a lot more options. There's already things preloaded in there that will give you exterior shots. It'll also wrap it around 360 degrees. So you'll see like a change of scenery as say you pivot to the windows over here on the left. You can also download and add more to it. SketchUp is a little bit clunkier in that regards. They do have some add-ons that'll do it for you, but what I'm going to show you is just kind of a quick and easy trick to get a view out the window. It's really similar to creating how we did our rugs and how we did our custom artwork. Another option you can do though is when we export this image to a JPEG, you can also take it into Photoshop and then mask out these squares here and then have a layer that would kind of be behind this image here of your exterior scene. And often in Photoshop, you have obviously more control over how you're going to finesse that image, the brightness, the contrast, things like that. So if you're comfortable with Photoshop, that might be something you want to do. Before we go any further, I'll show you how we get rid of this horizon line if you're thinking of doing it in Photoshop. So over here under the default tray, and if you're in a Mac, you're going to have to bring down your windows and open it that way. There's a section here called styles. Now, right now I'm in either the default style, there's also an interior design style that you can pick. You can play with these too if you want. There's a whole bunch of different kind of styles that will change the line quality of this. I'll kind of show you quick, but here's one that's called sketchy styles. So literally, if I click on this one down in the bottom left, you'll see in a minute my model will all of a sudden look like it's hand sketched. Again, not ideal for what we're doing today, but we're going to go back to default styles. I'll go to this. There's the default one. There's also an architectural one. There's even one, I think there's interior design. They've kind of added a few over the years. Not a huge amount of changes in these default ones. So we're going to stick to this architectural design style one. And so it'll pop back over to here. And when we set up our model in the first place, that was the default style that was there. Here under this default style I'm in, there's a couple buttons here where we can edit it. So one of the ones is edit. We see where we have the checkbox for sky. If I just uncheck it, and then see now how the whole default background is gray. So if you're thinking of doing this in Photoshop, that's one way to clean it up. You can also actually change the color right now. So the background color is just kind of like putty color. So if I wanted to change it to white, and then this will all like brighten up a bit, and that might make it a little bit easier for you to manipulate this in Photoshop. The other thing is some of you noticed in your views that you can see your axis and guidelines right there. I think that's the axis line right there, the green guy. So to get rid of that, we're going to say view, we're going to uncheck axes. So there, that green line went away. I'm also going to uncheck guidelines in case there's any of my guidelines still floating around in my model. And before I go anywhere, this is scene 3, I want to right click and say update, meaning it's going to save and just go say update scene. So here's the one I'm going to work at to get us some scenery on the outside here. So one of the first things I did is I went and downloaded a bunch of pictures. So I'll show you kind of the samples that I used. And I just grabbed a bunch of kind of forest ones. And so if you look at this one, it's playing around with potentially, is my house right in the forest or is it on a tree or on a hill? So we have this one. There's this one here, kind of puts you up on a hill. There's a couple other here that are rather like colorful. This one's more kind of, getting farther away. So you got to kind of watch the perspective of some of these too. So this might work, but I got to make sure I'm as if this scenery is farther out from my windows too. And then these are some close-ups with like flowers and things like that, just for some fun. All right, so the way I'm going to build this now is I'll kind of go to my default view here, my 3D view. And it's going to be over in this space here is where I want to put like basically almost like a theater backdrop is what I'm going to build. In class, oh, and I have one over here too. That's a test one, but we'll get rid of that. Eventually it'll look somewhat like this. All right, so over on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it on the ground first and then pull it up. I'm going to make it bigger than I did in class. I think I'm going to do 30 feet. And then I'm going to go 20 feet that way, basically to make up like a horizontal view out the window, 30 feet that way, and then bring it back this way to square. Now, what I'm going to do now is paint on this the image I have, the photo. So I want it to be, again, like we did art and rug, where it's going to take up this whole space here. So before I do that, actually, I'm going to leave it flat and then I'll pull it up in a minute. So then next thing I want to do is I want to go to my materials tab, and I'm going to make a new material for this. I suggest to folks in class use like the landscaping one. Again, the idea is if we throw this into Enscape eventually, it's going to read this as like vegetation. So pick any of the like grassy or vegetation ones here. So I've got this one here. I'm going to click on the little box with the plus to make this a new material. So now I'm going to call this, let's see, we'll call it Woods Backdrop. And you're going to have a couple, so just give it a name that you'll be able to kind of identify it later on. All right, so here it's checked that I do want to use a texture image, and now I want to pick a new picture instead of this picture of plant life. So let me pause again. Oh, we're good now. Okay, we're going to click on this folder right here, and then I'm going to navigate to my folder of the pictures that I saved. So they're going to be over in, let's see, here it is here. There we go. Up to this guy here, or there's my photos. So let's try, you know, we'll go springy. We'll try this guy with the flowers. All right, so there it is there. Now, right now, it's only 2 feet by like 1 foot. I'm going to break this chain here, and I'm going to say instead now I want it 30 feet wide by 20 feet high is what I want this image to be when I paint it in. So I'll say okay. And then I'm going to paint it here as a texture. So it'll come up over here in my like library of images, and then I'll have the ability to paint it in. So right now it's upside down. That's one of the things I think when I demoed it in ClassPass, I didn't realize my like beautiful picture of a hill was actually upside down. One of the things I'm going to do before I rotate this up is, because I turned off the ground, it gets a little confusing to make sure you're actually drawing on the ground. So I'm going to go back to my default tray. So it's tools or window, I'm sorry, default tray, show tray. And then I'm going to go back in and edit my ground back on. So I'll pause that quick just so you can see it once it's done. Here we are back at this one. So I'm going to click on sky again, just so we can see the difference between the sky and the ground. Actually, you know what? Let me make the background a darker color too, just so we can see. Okay. And we want the ground on, and that's there. Okay. So I'll turn this off eventually, but this gives me just like a visual plane to see if I'm on the ground. So we're good to go with that now. Now here's my little like backdrop here. So I'm going to rotate this guy standing up now. The picture kind of disappears as I shift around, but that's fine. All right, so I'm going to left click on the bottom edge of this rectangle, and then left click again somewhere along, again, the base of this, tip it up. Again, I'm going to try to make sure I'm at 90 degrees, and you know what? Again, my darn default tray is in the way. Let me make this smaller. All right, over here. There we go. Okay. So now as I tip up, you can see the default tray on the bottom is going. It's 85, 86, 90. We'll see how that kind of looks from scene 3. So let's go over here, pivot around. Oh, that's huge, isn't that? My flowers look like it's going to attack the house. So we're going to go back over here. And now this is where, depending on your picture, how far close to your house you're going to go. So I'm going to move mine way back here. This is a much different scale than the image I used in class. Right now we're kind of losing some of that picture. So then it becomes a game of kind of shimming it over to the right and making sure it's still in like the you're seeing it outside the window. You can also make this picture bigger or smaller if you want. Yeah, you know what? So I'm thinking this picture is like a little too oversized for what I want to view out my window, but let's just play with it for a few minutes here. Let's try this guy. Yeah, you know what? Or let's make it bigger now. So actually, where it is now, scale wise, looks okay in terms of the size of the flowers and the trees and all. But I'm going to just stretch this guy. So we're going to do S for scale. So I think, let's see, we'll make it a little bit bigger, not too much, but then we'll also kind of pull it over. Oops, here's my handle here. Pull this over like this a bit more. Let's see how we're looking out the window now again. So scene 3. All right, now we need to get it. We're just going to move it to the right a tiny bit. Let's see. Or actually maybe stretch it a little bit more too. So we're going to take it, move it to the right a little bit. Check out scene 3 again. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so I have this cute little view out the window with trees and flowers and things like that. Again, some of your views are going to be a little bit easier to work with than this one. This one kind of, you got to pay attention to the the size of these things and how far away they are. So for example, let's see, the one I showed in class, this picture gives you a lot more options of like how far away or how close you're going to be to this view. Because again, this is a view that goes pretty far into the distance, so it gives you a little bit more flexibility. So let me I'll pause and kind of show you how that one looks a little bit different too. All right, so I'm gonna just make another view of this using like a farther away perspective image, just so you can kind of see the differences in how we set this up. So first thing I'm gonna do is click on this rectangle I made and say Control C, and I'm gonna say Edit, paste in place. That's going to make a duplicate of this. You can also make yourself a whole new rectangle, but since I already have this size backdrop that I like, I'm going to use this. The one thing I want to do before I go further is the second one. I want to right click and say make unique. Now it is not linked to this photo anymore. So when I make edits to this, it won't impact this guy. So right now this one is here. I think I might have a new a texture already, but let me just check. I'm going to right click, say edit component, and now I want to paint in what is a new backdrop that I have. So actually, I think in all my copying and saving, I didn't save it. So I'm going to take this one, select this, and edit this picture. So now I'm going to go up to the box here with the plus, click on that to make a new one. I'm going to say like hill view, and then I'm going to change the picture, and that's going to be that one that's like a farther away perspective. So we're going to say open. There it is there. I want to check on the size of that. So it's 30 feet, but I want it to be 20 feet wide. So I'm going to say okay to that. And now when I paint this in, it should fit fairly well in that rectangle. So I'm going to paint it. There it is there. All right, now the first thing I want to do though is shift this guy around and make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to right click, say texture, position, and then for some reason he flips upside down. So we'll fix that in a minute. So there's kind of the edge of it. It just almost fits. I mean, it's supposed to since we told it to be that position, but right there you go. That's pretty good. All right, so this guy though, now we have to rotate it upside down or upside right. So we're gonna get the rotate tool and we're gonna go like this and we're gonna go like this and then we're gonna flip it around. And that, oops, not quite right. We're gonna do that again. There to there, flip it around, make sure I'm on the red axis. All right, great. Now I'm going to use this view, say for outside of my dining room window. So now I'm going to rotate that one around. So I'm kind of on the ground here and I'm going to rotate it that way. And we want to make sure it's going to the green axis. And for some reason, it's just kind of hovering out here. It could be since I'm so far away. There's the 90 degrees. Okay. So we're going to move this guy back into, so I'll pause and then get that set up for it. All right, so here's kind of the first run draft at this. One thing to notice is that since I don't have ground built out here out the front door, it looks a little funky. I haven't painted the exterior of this kind of edge of the exterior house that we see too. So there might be some things that you want to like go in on the outside and fix up. Right now, this picture's working okay for out of like the dining room, but like see if I pivot like this, but we want to change the size of it because obviously it's not quite filling the space there. So let me pause and I'll kind of get that finished up a little bit. Okay, so here it is adjusted a little bit. And again, doesn't look too bad. Like I said, there's a couple weird things happening over here. But in general, depending on how I switch my angle, we can kind of get this to be a fairly decent image here. But like I said, what I might do is though, just build a little pathway or something and color that in on the outside to make it look more realistic. I can also pivot it a little bit so we don't see that too much. But ideally, we want to kind of show off the house and over here in this geometry. So like I said, I might go back in and paint the exterior of this wall and just build myself a little path out here on the outside. So what I'm talking about is this wedge right here. I might just find like a texture of siding, and actually you're going to have it here under your materials. There are already some exterior components you can use. I might just draw myself a little path and paint that in with a gravel texture so that when I'm looking out the window here, it looks like real world. So let me just show you quick where some of those textures are for the exterior. So brick, cladding, and siding, that's what we want. So I might just pick like some siding here, paint that in, get that little edge there too. Gonna hide that just so we don't see that somewhere else. So if I right click on that and we can right click, whoops, I'm still on the paintbrush. Right click on that, right click, hide, then that's gone. then I might, like I said, just draw, I can even just draw a rectangle and kind of fake it out here and fill this in with maybe some gravel or something. So if I go back here, there's asphalt and concrete, but under landscaping, fencing, and vegetation, they do have some like rocks and pebbles. So let me just try that, see what that looks like. There's also this like pavers. That might be kind of neat. I don't know if I like the look of that. Oh, here we'll do some brick. Okay. So now if we go back to this scene, let's see if that kind of helps with like the realism of what we're looking at. I don't know where that went. Oh, what is going on there? Oh, you know what? When I did something in my drawing, somehow it auto filled in my window. All right, so let's go back to here. There we go. Okay, so that's looking a little bit more realistic. It doesn't look like we just drop off into space. We kind of do, but it's not as bad as originally. So again, this is the kind of things that for those of you in class with me, you need to be doing on your own this week. And then we're going to take a look at these all on Monday and start spitting these out as JPEGs for our final presentation posters.